We're going to continue section 12.2, the examples that we were going over on Wednesday. So this first one, we have an equation and we're supposed to solve it for y. So to get y by itself, I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. And remember that when I subtract that 3x on the right side, I want it to be my first term. So I'm going to end up with y on the left, and on the right I'm going to end up with negative 3x plus 2. And the reason that we write it this way is because we want to get it into the form of y equals mx plus b. So then we're going to go ahead and make a t-chart, and remember that one of the points we want to find is the y-intercept, and the y-intercept is when x is equal to 0. So when x is equal to 0, we have negative 3 times 0, which is 0, plus 2. So then y is going to be equal to 2. And then you can pick any other points you want. You can pick them randomly. I'm just going to go ahead and pick negative 2 and 2. And when I plug it into here, I'm going to end up with y equals negative 3 times negative 2 plus 2. That simplifies to equaling 8. And then I'm going to put 2 in for x. So I have y equals negative 3 times 2 plus 2, and that's going to give me negative 4. Then I'm going to go ahead and graph these points, the point 0, 2, negative 2, 8, and 2, 4. So graphing those points, 0 means I'm going to go 0 in the x direction, 2 in the y direction. Negative 2, 8, I'm going to go to the left in the x direction, I'm going to go up 8 in the y direction. 2, negative 4. I'm going to go 2 to the right, down 4 at the same time. And if you've plotted your points and figured them out correctly, they should all line up into a nice straight line. You want to use the straight edge to connect all your points, and there's your line. This next problem, again, we want to get y by itself, so we're going to subtract x from both sides. On the left, we end up with 2y. On the right, I'm going to rewrite this as negative x minus 6. Then I need to get y by itself. I'm going to divide every term by 2. And I end up getting y equals, and this is going to be the tricky part. So remember that in front of this x, there's a 1. So if I'm looking for the coefficient of my x, it's going to be negative 1/2. So I can either write it this way, or a better way to write it would be negative 1/2 x, and then I'm going to divide 6 by 2, so that's minus 3. Then go ahead and make yourself a t-chart. Remember, one of the points we want is the y-intercept, so when x is equal to 0, this term right here disappears and we're left with negative 3. Then I'm going to pick some other points for x, and the other points I'm going to pick, I want them to be able to be divided by 2, or nicely multiplied by 1/2. So I'm going to pick even points, or even values for x. So again, I'm just going to pick negative 2 and positive 2. When I put in negative 2, I end up with y equals negative 1/2 times negative 2 minus 3. Simplifying that, negative 1/2 times negative 2, that's going to give you a positive 1 minus 3. So overall, my y value then is going to also be negative 2. Then I'm going to put in 2 for for x, and I end up with negative 1/2 times 2 minus 3. And this time, negative 1/2 times 2 is going to give me a negative 1 minus 3. So overall then, my y value is negative 4. Then I'm going to graph those points. So I'm going to go 0 in the x direction, down 3 in the y. Negative 2 is to the left in the x, down in the y. Down 2. 2 in the positive x direction, which is to the right, and down negative 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there are my points. I can go ahead and draw a nice straight line. The last problem, again, I'm going to solve for y. So I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides. I end up with negative 3y equals negative 6x plus 9. Then I'm going to divide every term by negative 3. So negative 3, negative 3, negative 3. These guys cancel out. I'm left over with y. Negative 6 divided by negative 3 gives me a positive 2x. 9 divided by negative 3 gives me minus 3. Making my t-chart, if I put in 0 for x, this first term disappears, and I'm left over with negative 3 for y. And I seem to be doing very well with my selections for x, so I'm just going to pick negative 2 and positive 2. When I put in negative 2 for y, I end up with y is equal to 2 times negative 2 minus 3. Negative 4 minus 3 gives me negative 7. And when I put in a positive 2, I end up with 4 minus 3, which is 1. Then using those points to graph, I'm going to go 0 in the x direction, down 3 in the y. I'm going to go to the left in the x, down 7. So to the left and down 7. And then I'm going to go to the right 2 and up 1. And those points should all line up nicely for you. If they don't, then you've calculated one of your points incorrectly. That's why we pick 3, so we can check.